Well, hello. Gather round while I spin, and I'll tell you what to look for here. First, behind you, see himself shearing one of our cheviots with traditional hand shears. They are seldom used in these days of electricity, and a skilled man can judge just where to cut between the new wool growing and the wool that is being shed. If you put your hands into the holes there, you will be able to compare the fleece of the black-faced sheep, the cheviot and the merino. The blackface was introduced to Scotland in the early 18th century, being tough little animals and able to survive our harsh winters. In 1792, the cheviot reached Caithness, and the Highland landlords began turning people off the land to make way for the more profitable sheep. So began the Highland clearances and the mass emigration to the colonies. Merino wool is today imported from Montevideo and used because of its softness by Geoffrey Taylor in the manufacture of their tartans. Merinos have been bred in Spain since the 14th century and were exported to Australia in 1797. Carding is the preparation of the wool fibres for spinning by separating and aligning the fibres. This used to be done with teasels, which are like thistles with hooked spines. Put your hand carefully into the hole in the paddle and see how sharp they are. Teasels were replaced by carders, the wooden bats hanging on the rail. They are studded with rows of bent wire teeth and used in pairs to comb the wool. This work is now done by machine in factories, with the cards mounted on drums which make a roving for the spinning machine. When you move along, you will see Janet with a drop spindle. This is a stick, often with a hook or notch at the top, onto which the yarn was wound. It has a disc-shaped weight called a whorl, which acted as a flywheel. This was often used with a distaff, a simple forked stick held under the arm onto which the combed fibres were gathered. The bonny lass standing next to Janet is using the spindle wheel, or as we call it, the muckle wheel. By putting the spindle on its side and turning it with a wheel, it becomes a primitive machine. You can now see that it was upon this type of wheel that Sleeping Beauty pricked her finger, and not on one like my Hebridean wheel here. This has a flyer, the U-shaped piece of wood attached to the spindle with two pulleys. One drives the flyer and one the bobbin, so that as the wool is spun, the yarn is wound on. Both are driven by a belt from the wheel, which is powered by a foot treadle, leaving both my hands free to guide the wool. After spinning the single yarn, the wheel is reversed and two yarns are spun together. The yarn is then dyed with natural dyes. On the panel, you'll find a sample of crottle, which gives Harris tweed its unique colours and smell. Angus is checking the yarn for the strength of colour. Nowadays, combs of yarn are dyed in vats like pressure cookers, and the chemical dye is impregnated through the centre of the comb. The photograph shows you how modern dye works. If you walk along a little way, you'll find Fergus at the weaving.